Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take your sources, articles, research, notes, you name it, and unpack them to give you the essential insights, helping you get, well, instantly well-informed.
And today, we're stepping into some pretty murky territory. We're looking at the unsettling world of Robert Louis Stevenson.
Right. Foggy streets, gas-lit rooms,
Yeah.
the whole Victorian vibe. But we're going beyond just, the really famous one.
Exactly. Everyone knows Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, obviously, but we want to see how that darkness, that duality he explores there, kind of echoes in some of his other tales, too. Some surprising connections.
So our map for this is the material you sent over, bits from Jekyll and Hyde,
Yeah.
but also commentary, context, and these related stories.
That's the plan. We'll pull out the key points, try to show the links, understand the anxiety Stevenson was really digging into. Think of it as your shortcut to getting the gist of this fascinating and honestly pretty disturbing stuff.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The big one. Strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And our way in is Mr. Utterson, the lawyer.
Yeah, Utterson's our anchor, really. The sources paint him as, well, very buttoned up, undemonstrative, loyal to his old mates. You know, his quiet Sunday walks with Mr. Enfield.
Uh-huh. Those seem important, like
Yeah.
little ritual.
Exactly. A bit of stability before everything goes sideways. And it's on one of those walks that Enfield tells this story.
The one about the door?
Yeah, points out this weird, neglected building, no windows, just a door, right on a respectable street, very out of place.
Okay.
And Enfield saw something awful there. This small man, like a juggernaut, he says, just runs over a little girl, tramples her, leaves her screaming.
God, that's brutal.
It is. Enfield says it was hellish. A crowd gathers, they corner the guy, force him to pay up, and that's when the name Hyde first appears. Utterson hears it, and it sticks with him.
So that's our introduction to Hyde. Pure dread from the start.
Yeah.
Utterson gets obsessed, right? Wants to see him.
He does. And the descriptions we get of Hyde from Utterson and others later, they're fascinatingly vague, but also, like, deeply unsettling. Well, he's pale, kind of dwarfish, gives off this powerful feeling of deformity, but nobody can actually point to what is wrong,
Like no specific limp or scar or anything.
Exactly, just wrongness.
Ah.
And he has this displeasing smile, a mix of being shy and bold at the same time, and this husky, whispery voice.
But the main thing is how he makes people feel, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The sources hammer this point home. Intense, immediate repulsion, disgust, loathing, fear. People feel he's hardly human, even troglodytic.
Wow. That's strong language.
It is. And the commentary we looked at links this to anxieties of the time, ideas about degeneracy, the fear of society, or people slipping backwards, becoming primitive.
Right. And maybe racial undertones, too.
Yeah, the sources mentioned that. Those descriptions, unfortunately, tapped into some pretty ugly contemporary ideas linking physical appearance, often non-European features, to moral failing, when Poole later calls him a masked thing like a monkey.
Yeah, that lands differently when you know the context.
It really does. So Utterson meets Hyde himself, and it just confirms this feeling, this deep physical sense of dread. A chilling in his blood, the text says.
And things escalate quickly after that. The murder of Sir Danvers Carew.
Right. A brutal public attack. And Hyde is the killer. They find part of his cane, actually a gift from Jekyll, at the scene.
Which leads Utterson and the police to Hyde's place in Soho.
Yeah, and that's another contrast. Squalid area, but inside, Hyde's rooms are, like, surprisingly luxurious, good taste even. Though they're ransacked, papers burned, and he's got money in the bank, it just adds to the mystery of who this guy is.
After the murder, Hyde vanishes.
Poof, gone. And interestingly, Jekyll comes back to life, almost. Starts socializing again, doing charity work, gets religious even. Seems like he's finally at peace.
But it's temporary, right? Because then there's Dr. Lanyon.
Ah, Lanyon, yes, another old friend. But he has a massive falling out with Jekyll over his scientific heresies, let's call them. Something happens, Lanyon sees something.
And it breaks him.
Pretty much. He gets sick, knows he's dying, but before he dies, he leaves Utterson a letter. Strictly confidential.
The one Utterson can't open.
Right. Not until the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll. And the sources point out Utterson's dilemma here, his sense of honor versus this burning curiosity. He locks it away.
That restraint is telling. But then, the window incident.
Oh, yeah. That's creepy. Utterson and Enfield, walking again, past Jekyll's house, the back entrance, the one with that weird door. They see Jekyll at the window looking miserable.
They talk to him.
They call up. He starts to reply, looks like he might come down, and then his face just changes. An expression of abject terror and despair. Utterson says it freezes their blood, then the window slams shut.
Chilling. And that leads to the climax, doesn't it? Poole showing up.
Jekyll's butler, Poole, yes.
Yeah.
He comes to Utterson late one night, absolutely terrified, says the whole staff is spooked. There are sounds from Jekyll's lab, the room behind that door. Someone's in there, but it's not the doctor's voice.
Someone demanding drugs.
Desperately pushing notes under the door. For God's sake, find me some of the old. Poole's convinced Jekyll's been murdered, and the killer's hiding in the lab.
Utterson tries to rationalize it. Thinks maybe Jekyll's just sick.
He does. He wonders if it's some kind of disease-causing deformities. You know, syphilis was a huge fear then, something that could physically change someone.
But Poole's seen him. Briefly.
Yeah, and he uses that phrase again. He saw a masked thing like a monkey. Says it was the same size as Hyde. That's when Utterson knows. It's either Hyde or Jekyll is Hyde now.
So they decide to break down the door.
With an axe, they have to know.
And inside.
It's Hyde's body. On the floor, still twitching. Dressed in Jekyll's clothes, way too big for him. Crushed vial in his hands, smell of poison, bitter almonds, cyanide, suicide.
Room.
Utterson just says, we have come too late. They find Jekyll's religious books nearby, but with startling blasphemies scribbled in the margins in Jekyll's hand, and the mirror, the big cheval glass, is turned away from the body.
Like he couldn't bear to look at himself at the end.
Seems that way. So the immediate mystery is solved, but the how and why, that comes from the letters, Lanyon's, and then Jekyll's full confession.
Which explained the whole transformation experiment, the dual nature theory.
Exactly. Jekyll trying to separate his good and evil sides, creating Hyde to house all the bad stuff, and, well, losing control.
The sources add some interesting background about Stevenson writing this. He was really sick himself.
Very. Continual hemorrhages, apparently. Had to communicate using a slate sometimes. You have to wonder how much his own physical vulnerability fed into themes of bodily change and decay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the cultural impact. The stage play was huge.
Massive. Richard Mansfield's performance in '87, the sources say he did the transformation without makeup, just using his face, his voice, his body language. Apparently it was stunning.
But the timing.
Yeah.
That's what's really eerie.
Right. The play opens in London, August 1888. And later that same month, the Jack the Ripper murders start. Yeah, the sources say it completely changed how people saw the play and the book. This fictional story about a respectable man hiding a monster suddenly felt terrifyingly real because there was a monster hiding in London's shadows. It hit a nerve. A big one.
And the Scottish connection, even though it's set in London.
G.K. Chesterton pointed that out. He felt it was fundamentally an Edinburgh story tied to Presbyterian Calvinism.
How so?
Well, the idea of intense focus on outward respectability, but also this deep, private wrestling with sin and evil. Jekyll's obsession with his reputation, his horror at his own mortal frailty. Chesterton saw that as very typical of that kind of solid Puritan community.
Stevenson himself had thoughts on Hyde, didn't he? He pushed back against some readings.
He did. Said Hyde wasn't just about sex or indulgence, a mere voluptuary. For Stevenson, Hyde was pure cruelty and malice and selfishness and cowardice. But he also said the real harm was Jekyll's hypocrisy, that hiding the darkness was the bigger sin, in a way.
Interesting point. And the lab itself, its location was significant.
Definitely. The fact it used to be a dissecting room, that immediately brings up the whole gruesome history of anatomy in the 19th century.
The body snatchers.
Exactly. Resurrection men, grave robbers, people like Burke and Hare and Edinburgh who even murdered people to sell bodies to anatomists. Setting Jekyll's experiments there subtly links his modern science to that older, darker, illicit trade. It's not clean.
And literarily it fits into a tradition, right? The double.
Oh, for sure. The sources mention Hogg's Justified Sinner, Poe's, William Wilson, Dostoevsky. Stevenson apparently had a massive reaction to Crime and Punishment, said reading it was like an illness. And then Jekyll and Hyde itself became hugely influential. You can see its shadow over Wilde's Dorian Gray, for sure.
So Jekyll and Hyde is this foundational text about the split self, very much of its time. But you said Stevenson explored similar things elsewhere.
Absolutely. He kept poking out where darkness hides, not just inside one person, but in society. In supposedly respectable places, like in The Body Snatcher.
Right, back to Edinburgh and the medical students. Fetz and MacFarlane.
Yeah, and their reliance on these unclean interlopers, the resurrection men, to get bodies for their anatomy classes.
Fetz is an interesting character here. Seems respectable, but...
He has this other side, right? Roaring, blackguardly enjoyment at night, another kind of duality. Less dramatic than Jekyll's, maybe, but still there. The respectable face, the hidden indulgence.
And then they get that body, gray. Someone they knew.
Knew and had just dined with. And McFarlane makes sure Fetz is complicit, makes him log the payment. Quotes that Latin phrase, "Hodi mihi cras tibi."
My turn today, yours tomorrow. Chillin'.
It really is.
Yeah.
And Fetz, later, he doesn't feel guilt, the story says. He feels this unhealthy pride about it. It's a different take on moral corruption, not a struggle, but a kind of numb acceptance, even enjoyment of complicity.
And the story doesn't shy away from the act itself, the digging up of bodies.
No, it shows the grim reality, desecrating a quiet country graveyard, breaking the lantern in the dark. It underlines how the respectable demand from the anatomy school fuels this grim criminal enterprise.
That ending is really unsettling, too, when they think they've found Gray's body again.
Yeah, is it real? Is it a hallucination born of guilt? Stevenson leaves it hanging? That ambiguity is part of the horror.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. The Suicide Club. This sounds different. London high society.
Starts there. Prince Florizel of Bohemia and his pal Colonel Geraldine. Rich guys, bored, looking for adventure.
And they find it with a young man with the cream tarts.
Bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
This guy going around offering tarts, eating them himself if they're refused. Turns out he's well-educated, broke, and just wants a foolish conclusion to his life, spending his last few quid on this weird performance art of despair.
And he leads them to the club.
Which is presented as this, like, modern solution, a convenience for people who want to die but can't or won't do it themselves. Death's private door, they call it.
That's incredibly dark satire.
Totally. A members club for suicide, £40 entry fee. The members have all sorts of reasons. One guy apparently couldn't handle Darwinism. It's a cynical look at the desperation lurking just beneath the surface of society.
And this club pops up again, doesn't it? In The Physician and the Saratoga Trunk.
It does. This time we're with Silas Q. Scudamore. He's American, rich, timid, kind of a voyeur, spying on his neighbor in Paris, Madame Zephyrin.
He sees her meeting someone.
Sees her with this older British guy, Dr. Knoll, who's very cold about her. Only woman of the sort I can lay my hands on. Then Silas gets drawn in, finds a dead body in his own room.
Oh, great.
And Dr. Knoll shows up, cool as anything, basically says good and evil are illusions, admits he's a murderer, and the body came from his old pals, the Suicide Club.
So Noel's connected to them.
Deeply. He bullies poor Silas into taking the body, hidden in a big Saratoga trunk, to London, gives him an address, a password, dear or dearly. Noel clearly thinks Silas is an idiot he can manipulate.
And Silas actually does it.
He's terrified, but he does. Gets to London, bumps into Prince Florizel again by chance, goes to the address, uses the password.
Yeah.
The guy waiting is the president of the Suicide Club. He was expecting Dr. Knoll to send him the trunk full of bodies for the club's hitmen.
Good grief.
Yeah.
So it's a whole
The
network.
transnational criminal network, yeah. Operating right there alongside respectable society. Silas just stumbled into the middle of it through sheer bad luck and morbid curiosity. Needs Florizel to bail him out. It shows how close that darkness can be.
Okay, one more. Markheim. This one feels really focused, almost claustrophobic.
It is. Antique dealer shop, Christmas Day. Markheim comes in, it seems like he's looking for a gift, then bam, murders the dealer.
And the aftermath is key, right? His senses.
Yeah, everything's heightened. He hears things in the rain outside, footsteps, armies, money. He feels utterly alone but also watched, and he's physically revolted by the body. Intense guilt, paranoia.
Then the visitor arrives.
This mysterious figure
Right.
who seems to know everything about Markheim. To the soul, he says. And they have this intense debate. The visitor argues evil isn't just acts, it's character. That life is war. A very dark philosophy.
And he offers Markheim a way out.
Shows him his reflection, forces him to see himself, then lays it out. Here's how you can escape, clean this up. Even suggests killing the next person who arrives, a woman the dealer was expecting.
But Markheim, he refuses.
That's the climax. He hears the woman coming up the stairs. He looks in the mirror at himself at the visitor's reflection. And he makes a choice. He opens a door and confesses. Tells the woman about the visitor. He has been with me, and it was impossible to do what he proposed.
Wow. So unlike Jekyll, he confronts it and chooses not to take the easy, evil path.
Exactly. It's a conscious rejection, even though it means ruin for him. A moment of moral agency, right at the lowest point. It's quite powerful.
So pulling all these threads together from the sources, what's the big picture Stevenson paints?
I think it's clear he was obsessed with what lies beneath, both inside people and inside society.
That duality keeps coming up. Jekyll's split, Fetz's double life, Markheim's internal battle, the respectable face and the hidden darkness.
And crucially, how that hidden darkness isn't always separate. The criminal underworld's body snatchers, suicide clubs, murderers like Noel, they're connected to the upright world. Anatomy schools need bodies. Desperate people seek dark solutions. The lines are blurry.
Maybe non-existent sometimes.
Perhaps. And Stevenson makes you feel it, doesn't he? With those vivid, unsettling details. Hyde's physical effect, the graveyard mud, the body in the trunk, Markheim's visitor. It makes the psychological stuff feel grounded, visceral.
And we can see how his own life, his health, his background, the anxieties of the Victorian city like the Ripper, all feed into this.
Definitely. It all comes together to create these stories that, let's face it, still get under our skin today.
Why do you think that is?
Well, maybe because they ask questions we still grapple with. Who are we really? What dark corners exist in our own lives, our own society? What happens when we try to hide them versus when we confront them?
So this deep dive really shows Stevenson wasn't just a one-hit wonder with Jekyll. He was consistently exploring this complex, multifaceted darkness, the links between respectability and crime, the internal struggles.
Yeah, he forces us to look at the shadows, the ones out there, and maybe the ones inside too, and think about what we see.
It definitely gives you something to think about.
Yeah.
As you go about your day, maybe notice where you see those dualities or those hidden rooms in the world around you now. Stevenson's tales might just offer a new, slightly unsettling lens to view them through.